onze gast Alexandru Maftei.
Hello.
So we're gonna start with the first question. You based the story partly on Romanian folklore, so can you tell us something about the original folkloristic stories that the story of the movie or the script was based on?
The script is based on Mircea Eliade's book. So actually he's based his book on different, let's say, folkloric sources. So one of them is about people who die and are not buried in a proper way. They come back like vampires or whatever, and they are acting like getting the energy out of living people. So they're like feeding themselves with the energy of the other people. So that was one of the key points of the novel, that Miss Christina is living out of the energy of her mother and the two, the little girl and Sanda. So she's getting her energy and puts herself together by getting the energy out of these three women. So that was one of the things in the book. The second one, sorry. The second one was related to the uprising in 1907. It was unclear part of Romanian history that generated violence from the peasants and from the state. And most of these evidence were burned. So it's a bit of Romanian history that doesn't have too many documents to be well known. So Eliade put his Miss Christina's death in this period of time, creating a bit of more, let's say, suspense or whatever. Putting this into, and the third one is related to Romanian poet Mihai Eminescu, who has a very well-known poem, at least in Romania, that speaks about, it's called Jafaru, I don't know the translation, and it speaks about a girl who dreams about a star that will come and be her lover. And the star comes and kind of incarnates in a very beautiful guy. But at some point the guy, which is the star, realizes that the mortal love is not for him, so he cannot go further. So Eliade put this this thing in a reversed way by having Miss Christina, who is coming from another dimension, another reality, in love with the mortal, which is Egor. So he kind of reversed this story, and at some point Mrs. Moscow is playing this poem of Eminescu. So that's why I got this, relation between or inversed story.
I noticed in the credits one of the actors is named Ionesco too. Any relation?
Who?
In the credits of the film, the opening credits, one of the actors seems to be called Ionesco as well.
Yes.
Any relation to the actual author?
The author is Mircea Eliade and not Ionescu.
Another Romanian author called Ionesco.
Who?
There's a famous author who's also called Ionesco. That's why I'm.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's a coincidence.
Just a name. No, you already answered with one part, a question of mine, like the character of Christina. She's not a typical vampire. You don't see her drinking blood. She like more.
I try to avoid it.
Yeah,
I mean, even Eliade didn't mention anything about that. So it's.
in the book, you mean?
Yes.
Because that was my question. She's more like she influences people. She drains them from their strength. And did you change the character to adapt it to the film?
Not really. I mean, we tried to stay very close with the action in the book. Of course, we had to make some to simplify some of the things. But actually, we invented just at the beginning and the end of the story, but only using the dramatic material from the book. So there are a lot of references in the book about the blood, but nothing like what American cinema has used us to see, like drinking blood or
You adapted the novel yourself into a screenplay. Was it hard to get the essence from the novel and put it into a screenplay format and then translate it to the screen? Is that a difficult process?
Actually, I think the novel was quite visual, and the only thing that gave us some headache was how we could show the Miss Christina perfume that is described in the book quite well. On the other hand, then I think we had to simplify some things, and even in the book, there are not things that are explained by the author. I mean, there are just things that might lead you to kind of a clue what is going on, but he never say it like directly. So we try to keep that way of telling the story, not to tell everything, just to give a little bit of clues that will, hopefully in the mind of the viewer will make a bigger story than it at the first glance.
Talking about visuals, the film looks great. What kind of camera did you use, and how many shooting days did you have to shoot the film on?
We use a 35mm camera and Fuji film stock, and we had 31 shooting days.
Now that we're talking about cinematography a little bit, it's beautifully shot and a lot of static framing and slow-moving shots. Were there any films or filmmakers in particular that influenced your style? The look and feel of this film?
I don't think so. I mean,
it has a classic feel to it, more or less.
Yeah, we wanted to have this classic epoch look. And I think the most challenging thing for the DOP was to give this specific color and light treatment to Christina, just to bring her to life in a different way. It wasn't really a cliche like white face and whatever. So we tried to use the light creatively and of course some post-production.
A bit more about that look and your vision on it. Miss Christina essentially is also a period piece. It's set in an earlier epoch, like you said. Usually those films, they can turn out very grandiloquent, baroque, things like that. Huh?
It's not our case.
No, that is, because if you look at Coppola's Dracula, it's pretty extravagant.
It's about the money.
You chose to tone it down and to make it more subtle. Where did the decision come from?
I think, first of all, it's about setting the whole story in one place with few characters and not to get out too much of this place. And this is one of the things that I liked very much about the novel, that is concentrating on few characters that have, very good relations between, not good, rich relations between them. So we managed to exploit this thing with actors, and
it's actually the novel that dictated the film to be more subtle and focus on the characters.
Yes, I think so. I think that the novel is not in your face. It's very, it's very subtle and very doesn't give you, as I said, all the information. It just gives you a little bit of a clue here, a little bit of a clue there, and that was a very nice thing to work with the actors, because we were all the time reading the script, and at some point we got to let's say a problem that we couldn't solve, and we go back to the book, and everybody was like, you know, I have my argument, page, see. And it was quite a very creative process. Even after rehearsals during the shooting, was a very creative process to work with the actors on the text, because each actor got, you know, bits that might I might lost, or I might put apart. So we always come back to the book and have a debate about it.
Was the novel set in the same time period as the movie? Because obviously Dracula is more a gothic piece, while the time period you used is a little later, so that might have dictated a different feel as well.
Yes, I think the book is set clearly in 1935, and it's like almost 20 years from 1907. So that was one of the, let's say, setups of the book. And also, at that period of time, I think in Bucharest there was electric light, but in the country, still no electric light. So it was a kind of a challenge for Radoa, the DOP, to light everything with candles and to make a very interesting visual.
Another thing that felt very classical was the scoring. The soundtrack is a big, epic soundtrack, and it made me think of a lot of the 70s movies. So was that very deliberate as well, and who was your composer?
The composer is John Wiggins, is from England. And yes, I think we intended to have a very, let's say, academic or classic kind of soundtrack. He recorded the whole soundtrack with a Macedonian orchestra via Skype. Yeah, I mean.
Can you tell us how he did that exactly?
I mean, he sent the notes to the orchestra, and they rehearsed a little bit, like a couple of days, and then he was sitting in his studio, and he had Skype with a